Welcome in, Paul Catalina, Garrett Ross with you today as we do our Monday recaps. And there's just so much to get to. This was an insane week of college football. And right off the bat, Tim Brando said something that I've been saying for a couple years. He and I are of like mind on quite a few things when it comes to college football. But he said something on our show the other day about, look, there's more parity now. The gap between teams is different. The transfer portal has changed it. And I think that this weekend was the perfect example of that. Northern Illinois has never won a game like that in their history.
Nope.
And it was never something we'd even think about. But also, when you look across the landscape of things that happened, Auburn should not lose to Cal 2 years in a row.
No, they shouldn't.
Like, based on resources of the program and all of that. What is happening in the portal era is if you're not going to start somewhere in the near future, you're going to go play somewhere else. Now, does that mean you're going to be a superstar at the other place? No, but it also means that the replacement that they may go get for you at said place may not be as good as you are, and there might be a talent deficit. And unless you are a couple of programs in probably now only over short periods of time, are not able to hoard talent like you were, because, again, it's, go be the best player at Cal might be better than being the third best player at Auburn. And then Auburn, the best player might be hurt. And then that, again, the talent is, when you have free agency, talent gets more easily distributed, and dynasties are harder to come by.
They are, but I think right now we're also in a place where you have probably about 3 to maybe 5 teams that can hold on to that depth. And I don't think they can even hold on to it to the masses that we saw 2 or 3 years ago. But you see your Georgias, your Texas, Ohio State, and a few others that they do still remain some of that depth. They have it on their roster, but now I think you see more teams who you kind of got to go all in for 1 year at a time, and you got to be smart with your money. I also think you've got to be like, if you look at Auburn, for instance, like they've done a good job of dressing different roster deficiencies through the portal, but they didn't go all in on a quarterback. They decided to ride with Peyton Thorne, whereas if they might have, maybe you adjust that to where you bring in a few less linemen, or you bring in a guy that can be a difference maker at a receiver, but not necessarily he would be a number one guy at another place. But you bring in an alpha like Miami did at your quarterback, and you make up for it.
I mean, there's not many.
That's where it's at now.
There's not like you got to get in line early at the Alpha store
too.
You have to get in line early at the Alpha store. You can't just, they're not all out there.
Correct.
Cam Ward, look, I went and looked. Kyle McCord had another great game, torched Georgia Tech this week. That was wound up being a better game, but like they jumped out on Georgia Tech at Syracuse, and he's putting up big numbers in that offense. For the Orange, I looked at Kyle McCord's numbers from a year ago. They're better over these first 2 games than they were last year because the offense is really different. But I'm starting to think that the offensive coordinator changed, right? It's Chip Kelly now at Ohio State. So I'm starting to think that maybe the issue wasn't totally Kyle McCord, that it was kind of schematic there, because if he can throw the ball around the field at Syracuse, and they've got some good players, don't get me wrong. They've got some Aranda Gadsden II is really good. But they've got some wide receivers that can play, but let's be real
what
here.
He was working with.
It's not wide receiver you.
Yeah.
So, and I get like why you'd maybe want to move on from it, but from what I've seen portal-wise this year, there's 2 quarterbacks that were definitely going to help you, and he was one of them, and the other one was Cam Ward. The rest, like Grayson McCall, got roughed up, really played poorly against Tennessee. They looked fantastic against NC State. I was wrong about that one. We might have to do like
where Paul was right,
where
Paul's wrong.
Paul's right and Paul's wrong segment on Mondays. I told you on the text, I was like, man, I was wrong about NC State. Like I thought they would be chippy enough to hang in there. Nico, and it's not even Nico,
so good,
and the running backs, and like they tore them apart. And to me, that's like, that might be a conference thing. It shouldn't be, but like Tennessee just destroyed them.
I don't think that's a conference thing. I think that's one where Tennessee is one of those programs, kind of like Texas. Like they've been waiting, they've been down. You know what can be there and what you can achieve if you put everything in place. And this is just timing. I think Tennessee's one of those programs where you had the transfer portal, you had NIL, you had a fan base and these donors who have been longing for a long time to get back there. And now they can properly utilize this. And you finally found the right coach for the program in Josh Heupel, where, I mean, everything's just clicking for Tennessee right now. So I don't think it's necessarily them being like an SEC, ACC thing with that one. I think they're just in a better place in the current landscape of college football than what NC State is.
Yeah, they are. And I mean, I mean, there's a lot to get you. Look, it was, and for our chat, which is, a large group of Big 12 fans. I mean, we're mostly Big 12, right? I mean, that's what that's what we have. But we have others. It was not a banner week for the Big 12.
It wasn't
at all. Let's just go first. Elephant in the room. Colorado got their asses absolutely handed to them.
Not surprised.
None of us were, except the one guy who should have been, Smokey.
He's been
paranoid,
puckered up.
He's paranoid.
Puckered from
he's like a shelter dog.
Yes.
I mean, he is. He's just like, oh, the rain and then the noise. And I was like, man, I watched North Dakota State really do most of the things they wanted to do and just get out athleted. That was the only thing. Like, Colorado had one good drive.
Yeah.
One good drive, which you knew was going to happen. I thought it would happen earlier and not later. I thought maybe early, the emotions and all that, but that atmosphere in Lincoln, that the way that the team took it in and just used that energy. And my God, I'm forgetting his name right now.
Linebacker, number 5?
No, number 9.
Oh,
the defensive tackle was absolutely old school, big boy, badass Nebraska again. He was a throwback. And Bullock, the linebacker. He is really good. They have very good defensive players, and they've got a great defensive coordinator in Tony White. So and look, Raiola, to me, I know he's a true freshman. He looks more to me
he was so calm and poised.
He looks more to me like a sophomore who's just hasn't started. That's what he looks like to me. That he's really talented, very poised, very calm. I mean, it helps that your godfather is Matthew Stafford. It helps that I think he trains with Bobby Stroop and Patrick Mahomes. So he has all that going for him. But ultimately, this team is run through the defense like Nebraska used to be. They're built on that defensive personality. They have some really fun skill players. They've got good running backs. Dowdell's really, really powerful and good. Raiola is better than they've had at quarterback in a very long time, and it's only his second start. But what we said about Colorado all last week was this is not a physical team at all.
Nope.
And that is the calling card of Nebraska. They are physical. They are mean. They are angry. They show up pissed off and ready to go. And that's the Matt Rule bump, right? And I don't know where it goes, but looking at just comparing what Nebraska's schedule on the way out, they could very reasonably be 9-3. They could very reasonably 9-3. And I don't after watching and how physical they are, they're a team I don't want to play.
No,
I don't want to play them. We might win, but we're going to feel it kind of a thing. I don't want to play Nebraska. The way that they are intense and get after the ball and get after their pass rush was lethal the other night. And Colorado, Deion knows it. I think there's a lot of people that are still slamming Deion for things that aren't football Deion.
Right.
Football Deion knows this. Now he needs to adjust his mindset on what the team looks like. And I wonder if he'll be able to do it better when Shadur and Shiloh and Travis Hunter are gone.
No, because I think he's going to be gone. I do. I will own that. And if I'm wrong, I will completely come out and say I was. But I think this is just a trial run. We're doing this. I'm having this fun with my kids and I'm out. Because to me, if you go back and look at this, like Nebraska, everything, the differences in these two programs from when they met last year to this year, Nebraska is a program that is building a true college football team and developing. Colorado is just a show. Like there's no development. It's the same thing you got last year. I honestly, at this point, feel bad for Shadur. I feel bad for Travis Hunter because to me, those are two guys that legitimately have NFL talent who are being neglected. Like you're not doing anything to help them at all. Like they should be on a program with a legit offensive line and players around them, and they can make anybody a contender. Now, this is just narcissistic behavior that's getting out of control, in my opinion.
Look, yeah, I have no basis to tell you you're wrong because there is way more evidence to your point than there is to mine. But I do think where the rubber meets the road with Deion is going to be when your kids and Travis Hunter, who might as well be.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like you went and got him to go to Jackson State and you like all of that, all of this. You got all that to happen. You've created this thing at Colorado. I believe that he has the wherewithal to be a good coach, but he has to stop living in the cult of personality that comes around him, which again is your narcissistic thing. And he will be better off, or he's got to prove that he can coach when he didn't make the quarterback himself. Mm-hmm. He's got to do that. And I don't like, and look, Shadur didn't make it through the whole game. And
I don't like that was another thing. He definitely looked like he should have been in concussion protocol and checked out.
He
and all of that.
He was hurting one way or the other. Like I saw a lot of people like, oh, look at Shadur walking off with 2 minutes left. I'm like,
he got rocked.
He probably has to go shit blood. Like,
nothing's on Shadur. I mean, nothing is on Shadur.
Let's let the best player on the team, or one of the best players, like let's let the guy who got pummeled and never quit trying.
Yeah.
To like go in and get looked at because he was getting beat up, and it is that offensive line and their lack of running game is absolute football malpractice.
Yep.
It is football malpractice. Diaz, first thing out of his mouth at halftime, it was the first thing out of his mouth in the press conference after the game. First thing, we've got to get a running game. We've got to protect Shadur. We've got to get a running game. We've got to protect Shadur. And we know that he knows that. We all know that. But long term for Colorado, they couldn't stop Nebraska when Nebraska didn't commit penalties. Mm-hmm. That's the only thing that
they got to clean that up. That was bad.
Now, granted, those officials, I think, got a little too there's a lot of people watching this game.
No, but I mean, Nebraska did. That was the one thing we've seen.
Nebraska has penalty issues.
Yeah, they do.
They have penalty issues. But there were 2 holding calls in that game where I'm like, are you just calling that because you called it looked like the last one, but it wasn't, and you were over here? They lost 2 touchdowns on holding calls, and one of them legit, totally legit, the holding call. The other one was not,
right?
Which is where, again, the sky judge could come in and be like, no, it wasn't. Pick it up. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. Nobody has to know the difference. Nobody has to know. We can see it all in real time. Like, let's review that real quick. Nope. Not a hold. I know what you thought it was, but it's not. Just tell them not a hold. And then afterwards we can say like, no. Like the guy with the video did that. So the NFL is like halfway doing it with the accelerated video review. I saw it a couple times yesterday where clearly somebody's like, no. What's a touchdown? Go, you know, or whatever. First down, go. Mm-hmm. Which they need full time. Right. Full time. It would like the replay thing would go so much faster.
Speed everything up.
Yeah. So, but there was 4 targeting calls in the game. 2 or 3 were actual targeting. 1 wasn't. So game took forever. I think it just the officials on both sides, both teams had scores of penalties. It was a problem for both of them. But the only thing, and I just say this about Colorado, the only thing Colorado could do to stop Nebraska was hope that Nebraska held them. Mm-hmm. And they're going in the Big 12. It's not going to get easier.
No.
As a matter of fact, Nebraska, the way they're built right now, would be one of the teams we'd be like, oh God, if they were still in this league.
If you could put like Nebraska and Utah and let them go at it, that would be fun as hell.
Yeah. Exactly. Those two teams look very similar. Very similar and stylistically. And that they'll punish you. And I do hope Cam Rising's okay.
I do too.
And that we're not going to have to see another season of not Cam Rising. Hopefully broken finger's not as severe as a completely destroyed knee.
Yeah.
But I saw so many things this weekend that, opened my eyes to a lot of things going on in college football about talent and distribution and how, there's this, scale that nobody's ever going to figure out, I don't think, when it comes to player movement until there's like contracts.
Right.
But until there's something that's like set in stone, like the way that the talent flows around, you're going to have this chaos. And Notre Dame had no excuse to lose to Northern Illinois. None. Mike Denbrock, who I just a couple weeks ago was singing the praises of as one of the better offensive coordinators. I don't know what he was doing the other day. Like, the best player on your team is Love, the running back, right? He's the best player on your offense. Well, why are you not running play actions off of him? And why are you not feeding him more? Like, what do you like?
I think sometimes if you have a star quarterback, you get in your own way, and you think
this Riley Leonard
got to go.
Riley Leonard, and I love Riley Leonard. Mm-hmm. He's not a star quarterback. He's very good and he's very dependable, and he's not going to get you beat.
Correct.
But he also is not maybe an X factor.
Yeah.
Okay. And because when it came on, but they should be they didn't run him enough the other day. They're trying to do something Mike Denbrock was trying to run his Jaden Daniels offense, and he didn't have Jaden. I've seen that. I've seen it with Mike Norvell. He's trying to run his Jordan Travis offense with DJU. Mike Denbrock's trying to run his Jaden Daniels offense with Riley Leonard. I hate to break it to you guys. Those two are not the other two.
No.
They're not even close. And Notre Dame's defense gave up 16 points. They were as good as advertised. Mm-hmm. But their offense was abysmal. And love the emotion from the Northern Illinois coach. He'll be
on today.
He's on today.
Yep.
Yeah, he's on today. Coach Hammock. And God, it was great. It was great. I mean, but they have no business doing that. But guess what? Northern Illinois has players on their roster that can play at these other schools.
Absolutely.
And that was never the case before. Ever.
No, I think that's kind of that's the biggest thing to me is over the past couple of weeks is seeing the group of 5 teams and how they're able to kind of compete up. If you go and look at Texas State got another good win. I know it was over UTSA, but their matchup this week with Arizona State, that's one that they can win. And traditionally
Arizona State just beat an SEC team.
And that's a program where traditionally Texas State wouldn't be able to get those guys. But when you're able to get Jordan McLeod to come in and it's just cool to see the parity that's spread out there. And that's going to be the thing to me is watching UNLV is another example. UNLV is really good. And they've shown that they could step up and beat Power 4 teams. So that finding out who gets that last spot, and I'm more intrigued about that. About the playoff than probably anything else as the season progresses so far early on.
Yeah, I am. We got it before we go to the first break because we have so much more many more games to talk about. I do want to talk about Arkansas and Oklahoma State. Arkansas blew every chance they had to put that game away. Did. I put that on Oklahoma State is a better coach team. But Oklahoma State had a lot of weaknesses exposed in that game. And the one thing Arkansas knew, I think about this one game all the time because I was there. I've talked to multiple players who played in it. Was Baylor played in it's a basketball game, but I think about this when I think about star players who are superstars in their own right, in their time that they're playing. But RJ Hunter was playing for Georgia State. Baylor was playing. It was a 14-3 matchup or 13-4 matchup. It was in Jacksonville. And Baylor shut him down. Absolutely shut him down for 90% of the game. And the whole time they knew, like, okay, we have to withstand whatever flurry is coming because he's not going to keep missing shots. Right. Arkansas, you could feel it, especially in the fourth quarter when the game was close and then it was tied and then they had to tie it again. Alan Bowman had started to play much better and he'd started to complete some passes. Mm-hmm. But this is what I'm also talking about with Alan Bowman, where
there's stretches of just
if they're going to win the Big 12, they need him to be better than he was the other day, so that if you have these games with teams that are better coached than Arkansas, that they don't come back and get you when they shouldn't. For example, if they play that way against, say, Utah, I don't know their schedule. I don't know if they play Utah.
A couple of weeks, yeah, because Utah's going to roll into Stillwater in a couple weeks.
Like if they do that, a healthy Utah team, Utah won't let them back in. That's where Arkansas did. They need something to happen when Ollie's not having his best day. But for Arkansas, and I could see it on the sideline, I could see it every time they showed him as it got longer. You could see it in their heads, like Ollie's going to get us eventually. Mm-hmm. Like he's gonna do something, and then he did because he's Ollie freaking Gordon. So you did a great job on him, but then you gave him extra time to do something, and then you just don't do that. And Baylor lost that game to Georgia State because in the last 3 minutes or 4 minutes of the game, RJ Hunter made like 7 shots. It was unbelievable. It was ridiculous. I've never seen anything like it in person in a basketball game, where in this amount of time something happens. With football, it's obviously a different thing. You need just one big play, and they got those plays from Ollie Gordon down the stretch. And where he was not effective in the first half and a good chunk of the second, eventually Ollie's going to get you. Mm-hmm. All he needs to do in a close game is get you once. And that's what happened. And good on Oklahoma State for fighting it off, but there are some weaknesses that I did not think that they had.
No, there are, and you really got to be concerned going forward with Colin Oliver having sustained in the season-ending injury, because the adjustments on defense that Arkansas was able to have really kind of helped them get back in the game in the third quarter with containing Taylor Green. You also had the situation where Jaquinic Jackson got banged up, and that's kind of been his biggest issue going back to Utah. Is he's always struggled with staying healthy, but when he is, you see how efficient he is as a rusher. But no, I think the biggest thing for Oklahoma State is you finally did see Bowman get into somewhat of a rhythm, and the receivers that kind of get lost in the shuffle because of his inconsistencies. Presley stepped up, had a big game, was able to make some big plays down the stretch that helped him get back in it. And you're right. I mean, 95% of that game, Arkansas held Ollie Gordon in check, but he was able to get his, and Arkansas's offense just wasn't able to make the plays. It was like they got complacent down the stretch of the fourth quarter there. You started seeing Sam Pittman get a little nervous and everything. And I think that kind of demeanor held over into their it kind of trickled into their offense. But hats off to Oklahoma State for stepping up and taking care of business and defeating the SEC team as the ranked team at home, when it looked like early on in that first half, things were going to get ugly for them.
Yeah. But I do think did I wonder if that came through on the air? I don't know what it's been the last couple weeks. Like the traffic out here is always like crazy.
It's insane.
But like we're like the angriest traffic stop in Waco now. I'm afraid I don't have to send Emory out there to diffuse a road rage situation. You can't stay mad when Emory's in the room. No. So he's just like, guys, we're all human beings. Okay. But yeah, with honking and all that. But they, back to Arkansas and Oklahoma State, like that was great news for Arkansas for a little bit, but then they just wound up being Arkansas. So it's not, in the long run, it's just going to be like, well, if we'd been a little bit better coached, if we had done these things better, because it was the little things that got them. It was penalties and turnovers, and Taylor Green was really sloppy with the ball a couple times. I mean, he looked fantastic in stretches, but what that tells me is, if I'm an Arkansas booster and an Arkansas athletic director and all that, I'm just going to say, well, clearly we've got this guy, but we don't want to waste him. So let's get in somebody else who's not going to waste him.
Okay, so I'm glad you brought this up, because this is something I was thinking about watching that game on Saturday. Really, when their offense was rolling in the first half. Do you think this is one of those situations where they would allow Petrino to take over as head coach, like with him being there? Like, okay, you've brought him in, you've let the heat come.
I don't know.
But it
I mean,
feels like it feels like that would be an option that they would look at.
Yeah.
And I don't know how well it would go over, but it's just, you've got him in, you've gone through everything with all the backlash. It's working. I don't know. It's just something to keep in consideration.
I mean, would I be surprised that Bobby Petrino took that job under that exact scenario, which,
I'm just saying.
I mean,
weirder things have happened.
Yeah. No, I mean, that seems like a Bobby Petrino thing to do, where he would be like, oh, no, I'd love to come back. I've always loved this place, and I feel awful about the way it ended. And, I should have been better, and blah, 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 blah. And then he comes in, the offense is great, but they're still not winning games. And he's like, how bad do you miss me?
Yeah.
Do you care that I ride motorcycles with female staffers anymore? Or I can tell you that I'm past that. So, I don't know. It would not surprise me.
It wouldn't either. That had never crossed my mind, but watching that first half and everything, I was like, because they kept going to him instead of Pittman. And I was just like, it just planted the seed in my head to think about.
Yeah. Oh, I love Sam. I trust Sam and everything he's doing here. That's why I believe in Sam. That's why I came here. I came back because I love Arkansas. I love Sam Pittman. I love this. And then if there's an interim situation, he's going to be like, well, I mean, I can't say no when this beloved institution comes to me and says that. Although I do think there's probably a section of the fan base that'll be like, no, we've done this before. Let's do a different thing. Let's do a thing that might live in San Marcos or San Antonio. Let's do that thing. Yeah. Let's go to Texas and get a guy, maybe a guy like, Jerry Jones lives in Highland Park. It's not like he has to go that far to call Rhett Lashley.
Nope.
Also, who didn't have a good week.
Ooh,
didn't have a good week.
In trouble.
So I say it's not a banner week for the Big 12. There were two programs who we expected three that we expected very little of that all had good weeks, even though one of them did lose. Houston, and we're going to talk about those three. We're going to talk about BYU, Arizona State, and Houston next. This is the Triple Option on 365 Sports.